This is Mike Sullivan broadcasting from KPRR 89.7, the voice of Pinewood Ridge. It's 9:17 p.m., November 14th. If you're hearing this, consider yourself lucky. Or maybe not. I'm running on fumes here, both literally and figuratively. The generator's got maybe 3 days of diesel left if I'm careful. Let me start at the beginning. Not the beginning of today or yesterday, but the beginning of the end. The first whispers of what was coming for us. 23 days ago, on October 22nd, the solar physics team at Berkeley announced they detected unusual activity in the sun's corona. Massive plasma disturbances unlike anything they'd seen in decades of observation. The mainstream media barely covered it. Just another science headline buried between celebrity scandals and political theater. I remember cutting the article out of page 17 of the Tribune. Page 17. That's where they put the news about the potential end of modern civilization. I've always had a fascination with astronomy, amateur stuff mostly. I've had a decent telescope I'd set up in my backyard on clear nights, so I started digging deeper, checking specialized science news sites. What I found kept me awake at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling something ancient and primal. Fear of the sun. Our ancestors understood that fear in a way we've forgotten. 3 days after the Berkeley announcement, NASA confirmed what they called unprecedented coronal mass ejection activity. The Solar Dynamics Observatory satellites captured images of massive plasma arcs stretching millions of kilometers into space. I downloaded those images, stared at them for hours. The technical papers accompanying them mentioned magnetic reconnection events on a scale that broke their predictive models. Their words, not mine, broke their predictive models. Scientists don't talk that way unless something is very, very wrong. I started reaching out to contacts in the scientific community. Old college friends, people I'd interviewed for human interest stories over the years. Most wouldn't talk on record. Off record, they used words like unprecedented and potentially catastrophic. One physicist from MIT emailed me a single line, stock up on canned goods and books. I thought he was overreacting. I should have listened. Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Space Weather Prediction Center appeared on exactly one cable news show, a mid-afternoon slot when most people are at work. I recorded it. I've watched it 12 times since everything happened. I remember her exact words. We're observing magnetic field instabilities that suggest the potential for an X-class solar flare event significantly more powerful than anything in recorded history. The anchor just nodded and asked when we'd see northern lights in Florida, as if this was a quirky weather phenomenon, as if she hadn't just tried to warn millions of people about what was coming. I started broadcasting segments about the solar activity on my regular afternoon show, just short updates between local news and music. My producer Rachel thought I was becoming obsessive. The station manager told me to dial back the doomsday stuff after a few listeners complained, but a few others called in with questions. They were paying attention, not enough of them, but some. 18 days ago, I convinced the station to let me do a special evening report on solar weather. I brought in Professor Khalid from the community college. He teaches physics, has a background in astrophysics. He tried to explain in layman's terms what was happening up there, 93 million miles away, about how the sun's magnetic field works, how it twists and contorts through its 11-year cycle, how we were seeing activity that shouldn't happen for another 4 years, and at intensities that shouldn't happen ever. The phones were quiet that night, too quiet. It's like people couldn't process what they were hearing, or didn't want to. 5 days before everything changed, solar observatories around the world reported simultaneous readings of massive sunspot activity. AR 3792, active region 3792, had grown to nearly 17 times the size of Earth. 17 times. Try to picture that. a dark wound on our sun large enough to swallow our planet 17 times over. The magnetic field lines were becoming increasingly complex, showing what scientists call a beta-gamma delta configuration, the most unstable configuration possible, like a twisted rubber band stretched to its breaking point, except this rubber band contained enough energy to devastate a planet. I started staying at the station overnight, monitoring space weather alerts, compiling data, preparing reports. My wife thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Maybe I was, but sometimes paranoia is just early awareness. I interviewed Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka from the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan just 4 days ago. Had to wake up at 4 a.m. to catch him before he went into an emergency conference. The connection was terrible, patchy and full of static, almost like a warning of what was to come. He explained that the sun's magnetic field had become twisted and kinked like a garden hose under pressure. The energy building up was astronomical. That's the word he used. His team calculated the potential for a flare measuring X45 or higher on the solar flare classification scale. For context, the famous Carrington event of 1859, the largest solar storm ever recorded, is estimated to have been around X45. That event set telegraph papers on fire, created auroras visible as far south as Cuba, made compass needles swing wildly, confusing ships at sea. Telegraph operators reported receiving shocks so severe they were knocked unconscious. But here's the critical difference that kept me awake that night, pacing the empty station. In 1859, we weren't completely dependent on electronics for our survival. We didn't have power grids spanning continents. We didn't have satellites controlling our communications, our navigation, our weather prediction. We didn't have nuclear plants that needed constant cooling. We didn't have just-in-time supply chains managed by computers. 3 days ago, I did my regular morning show, talked about the high school football championship, the fundraiser for the new library wing, the upcoming town council election. All those small normal things that seem so surreal now, so distant, like artifacts from another civilization. Between segments, I was refreshing the space weather reports obsessively. The sunspot had grown again overnight. The magnetic readings were off the charts. I called Dr. Patel at the University of Colorado's solar monitoring program during my lunch break. She wouldn't speak on the record, but what she said haunts me still. We've never seen anything build this fast. The energy potential, it's beyond anything in our historical record. I went home that evening and hugged my wife longer than usual. Told her I loved her. Checked that our emergency supplies were ready. She finally started taking my concerns seriously when she saw my hands shaking as I filled extra water containers. We sat up late into the night, making lists of what we might need, planning where we'd meet if we were separated when it happened, if not when. I was still saying if then. 2 days ago, at 2:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it happened. I was in the middle of a pre-recorded segment about local business spotlights when the emergency alert system activated. Not the standard test or weather alert tone, a different one. One I'd never heard before in my 15 years of broadcasting. Satellites had detected a massive X-class solar flare erupting from AR 3792, followed immediately by what might be the largest coronal mass ejection in human history. The alert stated it plainly, X-58 class event. Scientists estimated it was traveling at over 3,000 kilometers per second, nearly twice the speed of a typical CME. The forecast gave us roughly 14 hours before impact. I abandoned the scheduled programming immediately, started broadcasting emergency information, preparation advice, what experts recommend for solar events, power down electronics, disconnect from the grid, fill bathtubs with water, gather non-perishable food, battery-powered radios, first aid supplies. The station phone lines lit up like Christmas trees. People wanted answers I didn't have. How bad would it be? How long would it last? Should they leave town? Where would be safe? Truth is, nowhere would be safe. Not from this. This wasn't a hurricane you could evacuate from. This was global. I stayed on air for 8 straight hours, voice growing hoarse, the studio coffee turning cold beside me. As the evening progressed, reports came in from scientists around the world. The projections kept getting worse. The CME wasn't just powerful, it was precisely aimed at Earth. A direct hit was coming. I went home at midnight to check on my wife. The streets were strangely quiet. A few people loading cars. Most houses still had their lights on, TVs glowing through windows. Normal evening activities while the electromagnetic guillotine blade fell toward us through space. Sarah had packed our emergency bags, filled every container with water, charged every device we owned. Smart woman, my wife, always practical, always prepared. She asked if we should go to her sister's cabin in the mountains. I said no. Better to be near the station, near where I could be useful. We barely slept. Held each other in the darkness, watched the clock count down the hours. I returned to the station at 5 a.m. The morning was surreal. Perfect autumn weather, clear skies, cool breeze, birds singing. Everything normal except for the catastrophe hurtling toward us at millions of miles per hour. The old station owner, Harold McAllister, called me around 6 a.m. Hadn't heard from him in years. He reminded me about the vintage equipment in the basement. The tube-based transmitter from the 70s. The military surplus generator. Said I should get them ready. That old stuff might be your only chance to stay on air, he said. Didn't explain further, just hung up. I found the manuals, started figuring out how to connect the old systems. Called in our engineer, Tom, who thought I was crazy until he saw the latest NOAA space weather alert on my desk. Then he worked like a man possessed, getting the old equipment operational. At 3:45 a.m. Eastern Time, amateur radio operators began reporting unusual atmospheric effects. Static increasing dramatically across all bands. Then the first visual signs appeared, auroras becoming visible much further south than normal. Reports of green and blue ripples in the pre-dawn sky as far south as Georgia. I was broadcasting continuously by then, reading every update as it came in, giving whatever practical advice I could. The strange thing was how ordinary everything still seemed. Power was still on, phones still worked, internet still connected. We were watching the tsunami approach while standing on the beach, unable to move. At 4:17 a.m., the International Space Station crew reported seeing the leading edge of the CME hitting Earth's magnetosphere. An astronaut described it as like watching a freight train hit a butterfly. 3 minutes later, we lost contact with them. At 4:22 a.m. Eastern Time, it hit us full force. I was mid-sentence, reading an update from the European Space Agency when the studio lights flickered and died. The modern transmitter went silent with a soft pop. In the sudden darkness, I heard electrical arcing sounds from the equipment room, smelled ozone and burning plastic. Through the studio window, I saw transformer explosions lighting up the pre-dawn sky like blue-white fireworks, one after another in a cascading wave across town. Then darkness. Complete darkness, except for the aurora now dancing across the entire sky. Vivid, undulating curtains of green and purple so bright they cast shadows. I fumbled my way to the basement with a flashlight, found the old generator, remembered Harold's meticulous maintenance schedule, prayed it would start. It did, that solid, steady rumble that meant we weren't completely cut off. Not yet. Tom and I worked frantically to connect the vintage transmitter, hands shaking, sweating despite the cool morning, testing frequencies, trying to find clear bands through the atmospheric chaos. And now here I am, broadcasting on equipment built when Nixon was president, running on diesel that was stored for a crisis that finally came. I don't know how many of you can hear me. I don't know how far this signal is reaching through the ionospheric storm still raging above us, But if you can hear my voice, know this. What we're experiencing is not temporary. The world we knew yesterday is gone. The Carrington event of 1859 took months to recover from, and that was with technology infinitely simpler than ours. This is not a local power outage. This is not a temporary communication disruption. This is the end of the electric age.
At that point, you only have a couple of months left.
You know the story of the Four Horsemen?
Yeah,
The apocalypse?
remind everybody.
The first one is white and wears a crown. The second one is red, steals the civility of the people. The third one is black, and there's several things related to that actually, but the fourth one is pale, and its name that's set on it was death, and hell follows with it. So, the sun is no longer yellow. The sun appears white in the sky, so bright at the top that it looks like it's wearing a crown, with the rays going in every which direction. When the galactic magnetic reversal point reaches, it will start to dim and look red. And the people's civility will surely be stolen from them when the sun turns red in the sky.
Lady, you can't just take all of this toilet paper. Are you kidding me?
Here we go.
As the dust accumulates and the sun turns black, everyone will know that judgment is upon us. And then when what we call the solar micronova happens, and it blasts that material out into space, through the dust and all that material, we will once again see that pale yellow hue, but hell follows with it.
The light arrives in 8 minutes, but has the potential to burn the sun-facing region directly looking at the sun at that time. The high-energy proton cosmic ray storm that ensues will be an invisible component of the disaster, as if anyone could take their eyes away from what would be coming right at us at that time. These cosmic rays integrate with the Earth's magnetic field and may begin the turning over of the Earth via the full planet electromagnetic insult. But before long, the actual shell arrives, and it arrives with the smallest and most energetic parts impacting first, a mega CME shockwave that compresses the Earth's sun-facing fields while surging them, creating the arc discharge others call the thunderbolt of the gods. There should also be a discharge out the other side, and perhaps the poles as well. This is more than just a planetary-level lightning strike and discharge. It sucks the water where it wishes, and triggers incredible tsunamis from that effect, and from the seismicity induced by its effect on underground water, metal, and crystals like olivine, which translocate upon discharge. This outstanding attraction to current can disrupt atmospheric density equilibrium as well, and depressurize parts of the world, sucking down stratospheric air, instantly freezing the surface, while frozen waters and glaciers and mountains of ice chunks from the modern poles could be cascading from their places into those same areas. The wind will enhance the tsunamis and storms, and all while something even more horrifying is happening below our feet. The volcanoes will begin to go off as the electromagnetic insult unlocks the low-velocity zone, induces through the large, low-shear velocity provinces, and triggers the kick of Earth's magnetic field through its reversal process, and as the world sways like a drunkard, tilting as Einstein, Cuvier, DeLuc, and, according to Major White, how the Pentagon and US CIA believe it will tilt, 90 degrees, back and forth each cycle, alternating to put the poles cyclically in the same places, but in between, in the transition, a disaster. As the tsunamis are rolling and the Earth is tilting, the heaviest aspects of the micronova shell arrive, the impactors. Some are asteroids pushed out of normal orbits, some are plasmic forms, cooled and congealed from the micronova shell itself as it travels through space. The sun has been hidden from Earth this entire time since the micronova eruption, and even after it begins to shine on us again, the dust from the nova, the volcanic aerosols, and the water vapor produced by the event will cloud out Earth's atmosphere and continue to rapidly cool the planet.
And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. He had opened the third seal. I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see, thou hurt not the oil and the wine. When he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come, see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death. Sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. At a 6th grade level. You have basketball players making $30 million a year decrying racism, all while wearing sneakers made from slave labor. But here's something for you. Right now, your world currently has 40 million slaves, more than the Romans had at the height of their empire. You want to know the best part, though? Half of those, are sex slaves. Okay? As for hate speech, well, you want to hear some irony? We didn't even come up with that one. You did it all by yourself. Sometimes you amaze even us. Bottom line is you're done. It's over, that's it. And we did it all right to your face, James. And now there's evil everywhere. And no one even cares, proving that we achieved our goal. Slowly, with your movies, your TV, and your media. We desensitized you, redirected your worldview to the point that you can't even recognize evil when it's right in front of your face. More to the point, James, you can't even feel it when you're doing it. And as for winners and losers, well, that gets decided at the time of death. The exact numbers are a closely guarded secret, but there are more of you ending up in my master's house than with the enemy. A lot more, Jimmy. For years without measure, that's all there ever was. Heaven and hell. Armed enemy camps in complete opposition. Your creation was nothing but a slap in our face. But my master also understood that if he could make man disobey, then his fate would mirror ours. And you didn't disappoint. Then came the tares among the wheat. In that moment, spirit became matter, flesh became a vessel. Self-will and self-seeking began a lusting after sin and impurity. And man, created to be king over nature, became its slave. A master, conquered and fettered. And sin
and his descendants to us, and we began our forever mission to destroy you. He made you in his image, but we remade you in ours. My master designed every tool imaginable to destroy every facet of the enemy's creation. He failed because of the carpenter. He was the thorn in our side, our greatest threat. We thought if we could eliminate him, the world would be ours forever. We had no idea of the consequences. The cross was our greatest mistake. And we thought we'd lost, James. Until my master realized that man still wants to be his own God. Do what thou wilt. That shall be the whole of the law. The Creator creates, and we destroy, and we do all of it through you. We always have. Did you forget your history, Jimmy? Even in ancient times, the archdemon Moloch was celebrated by tossing infants into flaming bonfires, accompanied, of course, by the beating of drums to drown out the screaming. Later on, they erected a giant bronze statue with outstretched arms, kindling fires beneath the palms. And when they toss a little infant into those open palms, they flinch at the red-hot metal, but then they willingly roll themselves off into the flames.
What does any of that have to do with me?
Oh, nothing, James.
Especially since the priests now wear surgical scrubs. The killing takes place in wounds, so there's no screaming to be heard anyway. And the remains are tossed into gas-fired crematoriums. No, James, no. There's no parallel whatsoever to you. Can you imagine the agony the carpenter feels when we rip a child to pieces inside its own mother's womb? Because that's what we do, James. You and us. We do that together.
Started in Antarctica and is causing unprecedented destruction and chaos around the globe. Here's what we do know right now. Just over 3 hours ago, what scientists are calling a massive mega caldera or super volcano erupted under the Antarctic ice sheet, expelling millions of tons of ash into the atmosphere. The force of the explosion shattered large portions of the ice shelf, instantly melting trillions of gallons of water and triggering a tsunami that is hurtling northward at nearly 600 miles an hour.
Because when Jesus spoke to the 12 shortly before his arrest, he described what the future was going to look like.
Artificial intelligence,
Exactly.
and robots look at things like gene editing.
Exactly.
Opening a whole new horizon for medical science.
And you see, the difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing,
Right.
just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. And offer certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. When you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. Of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications, and we have to be prepared for it.
So I want to talk to you today about the future of our species, and really the future of life. We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Within a century or two, Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. Because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. These will be the main products of the economy, of the 21st century economy. Not textiles and vehicles and weapons, but bodies and brains and minds. Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Those who control the data control the future not just of humanity, but the future of life itself. Because today, data is the most important asset in the world. Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. There is a lot of talk these days about hacking computers and email accounts and bank accounts and mobile phones, but actually we are gaining the ability to hack human beings. Biological knowledge multiplied by computing power, multiplied by data, equals the ability to hack humans.
The human race is at a critical point.
Al final, de lo que se trata es de organizar una gran entidad o varias entidades supranacionales que sean las que dicten el nuevo orden de cosas, el nuevo orden mundial.
Have no doubt, you are living the most important moments of your life. Because you're going to be the protagonists of the most important moments in the history of humanity.